She walked into the courtroom in handcuffs, accused of one of the worst crimes in military culture, impersonating a Navy SEAL. The prosecution thought they had her cornered. The reporters mocked her. The crowd jeered. But then, just as the judge was about to speak, an admiral in full uniform stood up, pointed at the mark on her arm, and said 5 words that turned the entire case upside down: "That tattoo's not fake." Before I take you deep into this unbelievable story, if you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button right now and show some love to her. The story of Emily Carter didn't begin in a courtroom or a prison cell. It began in a small town in Virginia, where she grew up as the daughter of a mechanic and a schoolteacher. From an early age, Emily had a toughness that didn't match her quiet, slender frame. She wasn't the kind of girl who played with dolls. She was the kind who climbed trees, scraped her knees, and stared down boys twice her size without flinching. Still, no one could have predicted that years later, she would stand accused of impersonating a Navy SEAL, an accusation that could not only destroy her reputation but put her behind bars. It all started with a chance encounter in Norfolk. Emily was at a bar near the naval base, having a drink with friends after a long week. A group of sailors came in, rowdy and loud, the kind who instantly draw attention. One of them noticed the tattoo on her inner forearm, a stylized trident interwoven with an eagle and anchor. "That's a SEAL tattoo," the sailor said, half joking, half suspicious. Emily simply smiled and nodded. She didn't say she was one of them. She didn't deny it either. That subtle silence was enough to spark a rumor, and in military towns, rumors spread faster than wildfire. Within days, whispers circulated that a woman was pretending to be a SEAL, something practically unheard of, since no woman had ever officially completed BUD/S, the grueling training that forged SEALs. For some, the idea was laughable. For others, it was infuriating. By the end of the week, military police were at Emily's door. She was arrested under suspicion of stolen valor, accused of faking her identity, dishonoring the uniform, and violating federal law. The courtroom was packed the day her trial began. Veterans filled the benches, some seething with anger, others simply curious. The prosecution painted Emily as a fraud, a woman desperate for attention, who dared to mock the sacrifices of America's most elite warriors. They displayed photos of her tattoo. They played recordings of witnesses saying she acted like she belonged among Navy men. Emily sat silently at the defense table, her wrists chained, her eyes calm but piercing. She didn't speak much, even when questioned. That silence only made the crowd angrier. "Why won't she deny it?" one veteran muttered from the back. Another scoffed, "She's just a wannabe. Throw the book at her." But then came the turning point, the moment no one could have seen coming. As the judge prepared to move the case toward sentencing, a tall, broad-shouldered man in a crisp white uniform rose from the gallery. Admiral James Holloway, a man whose reputation stretched across the Navy, cleared his throat. The room went silent. "Your Honor," he said firmly, "I need to address the court. That tattoo on Ms. Carter's arm, it's not fake. It's real. And it's earned." Gasps filled the room. The prosecutor looked stunned. The judge narrowed her eyes. "Admiral," she said cautiously, "are you suggesting this woman is, in fact, a Navy SEAL?" Holloway stepped forward, his voice carrying the weight of decades of service. "I am suggesting that what you think you know about Ms. Carter is only half the truth. And the other half is classified." Suddenly, the entire trial flipped upside down. Whispers swept through the gallery. Emily finally lifted her head and met the Admiral's eyes. For the first time since her arrest, she allowed herself the faintest smile. The prosecution scrambled. "Impossible," they argued. "No woman has ever passed BUD/S. No woman has ever been pinned with the trident." The Admiral didn't flinch. "Officially, perhaps not. But unofficially? That's another story." And so the unraveling began. Piece by piece, secrets buried deep within classified files started to surface. Emily had not been an ordinary civilian. Years earlier, she had been recruited into a shadow program, an experimental unit designed to test whether women could endure the same brutal conditions as their male counterparts. Most candidates washed out within days. Emily didn't. She pushed through hell week, freezing surf torture, endless runs, drown-proofing exercises that left most trainees gasping for their lives. By the end, she hadn't just survived, she excelled. Still, politics and tradition were against her. The Navy could not publicly acknowledge her as a SEAL without sparking controversy. So her record was sealed, her achievements hidden. She returned to civilian life, carrying a secret that few could ever imagine. The tattoo? It wasn't self-made or copied. It had been inked onto her arm by the very men she trained beside, an unspoken acknowledgement of her place among them, even if the world could never know. Now, sitting in chains, Emily was forced to live through the humiliation of being branded a fraud. The Admiral's testimony shattered that illusion. Suddenly, the courtroom shifted. Reporters who once mocked her scrambled for headlines. Veterans who once sneered at her sat frozen in disbelief, but the twists didn't end there. Because if Emily's record was classified, the prosecution demanded proof. They pressed the Admiral to provide documentation. He refused. Releasing her file would endanger missions still in play, he said sternly. The judge was caught in a storm. On one hand, the evidence against Emily seemed overwhelming. On the other, a decorated admiral swore she was telling the truth. With no official documents, it became a battle of credibility versus secrecy. Days stretched into weeks. Emily's lawyer argued that the government couldn't prosecute her for impersonation if she was, in fact, who the Admiral claimed she was. The prosecution insisted without paperwork, she was just another civilian pretending to be a hero. Then came the second twist. An anonymous envelope arrived at the defense office. Inside were photographs, grainy, taken in hostile territory overseas. In them, Emily could be seen in combat gear, moving alongside SEALs in a night raid. Her face was unmistakable. On her arm, the tattoo glowed under infrared light. When these photos surfaced in court, the room exploded. Reporters shouted questions. Veterans rose from their seats, stunned. The prosecutor stammered, "These could be doctored." But everyone could see the truth in Emily's eyes. By the time the trial ended, Emily had gone from accused fraud to unsung hero. The charges were dropped, but the government never officially acknowledged her service. To the public, she remained a mystery. To those who knew, she was proof that courage has no gender. After walking free, Emily didn't hold press conferences or write a book. She slipped quietly back into life, carrying the same silence she had always carried. But the legend of the woman with the SEAL tattoo spread far beyond Norfolk. To some, she was a myth. To others, a trailblazer. And to the men she once fought beside, she was family. Even today, no one knows the full truth of Emily Carter's story. Some say she's still out there, working missions no one will ever hear about. Others believe she left that life behind for good. But one thing is certain, the day the Admiral stood up and declared her tattoo was not fake changed history forever. So, what do you think? Was Emily Carter the first hidden female SEAL, or just the center of the most extraordinary case of mistaken identity ever? And before you go, let me know in the comments, from which part of the country are you watching this video?